Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So we will continue with our discussion in sociology. So in the previous session we have discussed about the syllabus of sociology, and I've told you we'll be starting with the sessions from next day onwards. So here we will be taking up the first topic from your syllabus, that is modernity and social changes in Europe and emergence of sociology. So we will do this in detail. Now before that, what you can do is you can look into few questions which were asked in mains before. It is all are direct questions. Okay, so first you can see modernity and emergence of sociology, impact of modernity, social changes and emergence of sociology, how modernity, social changes in Europe led to emergence of sociology. All are the same. Then you are given a statement, sociology, this is sociology emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe, okay, and you discuss. So this may be slightly different one, but still it is again related to modernity only. Sociology is preeminently the study of modern societies. That means preeminently the study of modern societies means it's all about modernity. Modern societies is actually we are discussing modern society from medieval Europe. That is what the period that we are actually discussing, okay. So these are the questions which can be asked. All are direct. If you look into this, in all these questions, one thing that you need to know is modernity, okay, and the social changes. Where? In medieval Europe, not anywhere else, okay. So this is a topic which is given in the syllabus directly, and directly the question is asked. Modernity you need to see, social changes you need to see, and the emergence of sociology. So this is what we are going to do in this particular discussion. Now before we start, what I'll do is I'll give you the flowchart of the answer that you're going to write, or the flowchart of the discussion that we're going to do now. See, I'll be discussing this in the answer writing form. So exactly the same thing is what you need to reproduce in your exam. You don't want to read anything for this particular topic. In fact, for paper 1, whatever we are covering in the class, we are going to cover in the class, that itself will be sufficient, okay. So all the questions will be direct, and I'll make sure that everything will be covered in the discussion. So I'll give you the flowchart now about the discussion. So first, what we will do is modernity is all about Renaissance period, okay. So we will be talking about Renaissance period or age of enlightenment. That's what you mean by modernity in medieval Europe, okay. So 15th to 18th century, the age of enlightenment or Renaissance period. Now before you talk about age of enlightenment, you briefly mention about what was the period before age of enlightenment. That means dark ages, okay. So maybe in 20 words or 30 words you can mention in small paragraph about dark ages in your introduction, because you don't want to give too much importance to dark ages, because your question is related to modernity and the social changes. Nobody is asking you about dark ages, and nobody will also ask you about dark ages. But in the introduction we briefly mention about dark ages, that is before age of enlightenment. I'll tell you what is it. It's like a very orthodox religious and political view, okay. The system is based on agricultural feudal estate system. The church preached excessive reliance on religion. The kings or the political aristocracy was engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people. That means without thinking what the people need or the public need or welfare of the public, they are only engaged in wars so that they can expand their territory, okay. So this is the situation that we are actually discussing when it comes to dark ages, and I don't want you to write more than 20 words because you will not get enough space if you are spending too much of time or space here. Now after the dark ages, what we'll do is we will talk about age of enlightenment, okay. So we will talk about age of enlightenment, or this period is known as Renaissance period, okay. So we will discuss this in detail, and when we discuss about age of enlightenment or Renaissance period, we'll say that Europe started witnessing a huge transformation in terms of scientific, intellectual and commercial revolution. So if you see, the elements of age of enlightenment are related to intellectual revolution, commercial revolution, scientific revolution. So we'll discuss that also. So scientific revolution, intellectual revolution and commercial revolution. So here we will talk about industrial revolution, etc. when we discuss about commercial revolution, and all these together we will discuss here an ideology of modernity. So modernity is basically an ideological project which is related to this period, okay. So which is connected to science, okay. So when we discuss about modernity, different elements of modernity we will discuss. For example, political dimensions of modernity, economic dimension of modernity, social dimension of of modernity, and intellectual dimension of modernity. So when we talk of political dimensions of modernity, we will talk about liberal democracy. Till then it was like authoritarian system, now liberal democracy, and concerned about welfare of the people. All these are the political modernity. Okay, so we are discussing different dimensions of modernity here. So that is political modernity. Then we will talk of economic modernity, right? New factories emerged, okay, new modes of production, new techniques of accounting. All these will come under economic modernity. Intellectual modernity, it's all about faith in science, okay, logical inquiry based on evidence and reason. All these will come under intellectual modernity. Social modernity, it's like new types of education, secularism, industrial society, nuclear families. All these will come under social modernity. So basically what I want to tell you is I'm just interested in giving you the flowchart. Now we'll discuss this in detail. So Dark Ages, then Age of Enlightenment, which is having 3 dimensions: intellectual revolution, okay, and then scientific revolution, commercial revolution. And we also talk about modernity during this time, which is having 4 dimensions. Modernity is actually an ideological concept which permeates through each and every aspect of social life. Okay, like political, like economic, like social, like intellectual, all these dimensions we are writing. Okay, and then we will say all these actually brought profound changes in society. So we will see profound changes in society. So we will see what all are these changes. We will see the macro changes, which is visible at the whole level of society, and micro changes, which is specific changes. Okay, so see, this modernity is something which is considered as very highly desirable at that point of time, because I've told you about Dark Ages, right? So modernity is something which is considered as very much desirable, as it is expected that it will enlighten the life of the individual and it improve the living condition of the individual, and it did exactly the same. But modernity also came to be associated with a lot of social problems, and that's what we are going to discuss here. And this set the context for emergence of sociology. So some social problems emerged. Now to explain these problems or changes, it was never seen before. Okay, so to explain these changes and to provide solution to these changes, and also to predict the future of society, there is a need to have a new discipline, because the existing bodies of knowledge like history or economy or any other subject could not explain the new changes. So now there is a context for emergence of sociology, and immediate context was present in France. I'll tell you the reason when we move forward. And Saint Simon initially thought of social physics, and later Auguste Comte not only coined the term sociology but also laid the basic foundation of the subject, and he is known as the father of sociology. So your structure should be like this. So this is a skeleton of your answer. The body I will give you now, every content I will give you now, and I'll also give you the lecture notes. When I take it in regular classes, what I do is I'll explain the structure, the flowchart, then I'll explain what all the body parts which will come under which, what all things you need to fit into this. Depends on the demand of the question. If it is 10 mark, what you need to write. If it is 20 mark, what you need to write, I'll tell you. And then I'll dictate it, okay? But here I'm not going to dictate it. We are in an online platform. It's absolute waste of time. So what I've done is I've taken one of my student note, and I will explain each and every point of that note, because when we are studying sociology, every line is important. If you miss one line, you will lose the connection. So this is what exactly I'm planning to do. Each and every line I'll explain. That is exactly what I'm doing in regular class also. While I'm dictating, I will, when I'm taking about one particular sentence, if it is not discussed, I'll explain it further. Okay, so that possibility I'm not leaving here also. I'll be taking the notes and I'll read out the notes and I'll explain that further. Okay, so let's get into the actual discussion now. So I hope you understood the body. So we'll talk about Dark Ages, we'll talk about Age of Enlightenment and 3 dimensions of Age of Enlightenment. We talk about modernity, the 4 dimensions of modernity: political, economic, social and intellectual. Then we will tell that this brought a lot of social changes, and this is the context for emergence of sociology. Along with this, some intellectual contribution was also there. Okay, so this is the impulse, this is the reason why sociology emerged, this is the context. But without intellectual, no discipline will come, right? No discipline will emerge. So there are some intellectual contribution also. So this is how we are going to discuss this particular answer. So this is what we are going to do. So Dark Ages, Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance period. We will talk about scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, commercial revolution. We will talk about modernity, the 4 dimensions of modernity: economic dimension, social dimension, political dimension, and intellectual dimension. Then we will say that this brought profound changes in society, and to explain these changes and to provide solution and to explain the future course of society, a new body of knowledge was required, and that is actually the context for the emergence of sociology. So that led to emergence of sociology. Okay, now what you will write about Dark Ages, as I've already told you, the European society before the age of Enlightenment was characterized by, agriculture, feudal estate system, and the very much orthodox religious and political view. Okay, and the kings were engaged in wars. The political aristocracy was engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people, without thinking of the people. Okay, no welfare measures for the public, and the church preached excessive reliance on religion. So that period is collectively called as Dark Ages. And then Europe witnessed heavy transformation in the field of scientific, commercial, and intellectual revolution. And then we talk about modernity. Modernity's different dimensions. Okay, and then we will talk about profound social changes. When we talk of the social change, what we will do is we will tell that modernity is something which was considered as so highly desirable at that point of time, because we are coming out of Dark Ages, and it is expected that modernity is going to enlighten the life of the people. Modernity is going to change the life of the people, and exactly that is what is done by modernity. But it came to be associated with a large number of social problems also. So for some positive, there will be negatives also. Okay, and that social problems is what we need to study in detail. For example, when we talk of macro level changes which modernity brought in, modernity actually brought in an industrial society. Okay, so these are macro level change. Macro means the changes which is witnessed at the whole level of society. Okay, micro is specific and within. So macro is seen at the whole level, wider perspective. So macro changes means it actually introduced an industrial society. So an industrial society emerged, and then democracy was emerged, as I've already discussed with you. Democracy, till then it was authoritarian, now democracy. Thirdly, a new middle class was emerged, so middle class, and then new intellectuals. So these are the 4 dimensions that we need to discuss when we discuss about the changes. So when you talk about industrial society, for example, I've told you modernity brought in a lot of social problems also, or social challenges also. So when we talk of industrial society, the process of industrial society is not that smooth. The industrial society also brought in some problems, like the workers were working in inhuman working condition, okay, non-living condition, very less wages, and more number of working hours. All these were problems of industrial society. Okay, migrations was there. Then slums emerged near the factories. Because of migration, nuclear families emerged. So when it is nuclear families, there are instances of domestic violence and even breakages also. If it was extended family, the chances of domestic violence is less, because the elder members in the family will control the younger members, right? But if people migrate, and if there is a nuclear family, you know that already, if it is nuclear family, the chances of domestic violence is more. Okay, so that domestic violence you cannot see in the old time. Now what you can see is much more because of migration, because of nuclear family, because of tensions related to jobs, etc. Okay, we are not getting into the details of it, but these are the few problems, right? New types of crimes emerged, pickpocketing, etc. Okay, then all together in industrial society, actually a new type of poverty and deprivation is visible. So process of industrialization is not that smooth. It came to be associated with large number of social problems. You can discuss all these problems that I've told you, and we will write also, no problem. And then when we talk of democracy, here what is the problem? Democracy, the problem was, certain societies like England, the transition from authoritarian to this democracy, the emergence of democracy was gradual. But in societies like France, it was preceded by a revolution. So the success of democracy was actually a question. the people are not sure about the success of democracy. So that created uncertainty in the minds of the people, and that resulted into insecurity in the minds of the people. So people are so much uncertain about the success of democracy. People are not sure because people never had any such experience before. Okay, so societies like France were facing this problem related to the success of democracy, and there was a total turmoil in French society because of the insecurity which is created, or the French society was in total chaos because of democracy, because the people have always this apprehension about the success of democracy. So I hope you understood the problem with democracy, especially in France. And I've told you that immediate context was present in France because of this issue. And the sociology actually emerged in France. The initial sociologists are also from France. Okay. Then third, if you look into middle class. See, till then only upper class and lower class. Now there is a middle class, especially after industrial society. Okay. Now see, the middle class aspirations are entirely different to upper class and lower class. Some contribution will be there from lower class and some will be there from upper class, but it is totally different class and totally different aspirations, and everything is totally different, right? So till then the society is based on upper class and lower class. Now the middle class also there. So there is a need to redefine the society was felt, because you need to incorporate the aspirations of the middle class also into the existing socio-economic framework, right? So there is a need to redefine the society was felt, and that actually created a social divide. Middle class created a social divide, so there is a need to redefine the society was felt. That is also one of the context for emergence of sociology. Apart from this, intellectual background. See, all these provided, the impulse for the context, or it provided the context. But without intellectuals, nothing will be there, right? No emergence of sociology. So at that time, a very well developed political history was there, which provided huge data and information about the society, and new methods were devised. For example, survey method in 19th century, and that established, the possibility of studying society in a scientific way. So social issues in a scientific way. So you understood that society and social issues could be studied in a scientific way. Okay, then Darwin's theory of biological evolution actually helped, in understanding the evolution of society also. For example, when we talk of Marx's theory of historical materialism or mode of production, we will discuss. I hope you already know something about Marx. Marx understands society, or Marx conceptualized history in terms of different stages. Ancient mode of production, which is based on slave society, right? Masters and slave, two classes was there. And then feudal mode of production, which is based on, feudal lord and serf relationship. Land is important there. Then capitalist mode of production, which is based on bourgeois and proletariat, or the workers and the capitalists, or the haves and the have-nots. Every society, he talk of haves and have-nots. Okay, so those three modes of production. Then he also discusses about futuristic mode of production in terms of socialism and communism. We will discuss all these in detail later, but I'm just saying that Marx also used this particular perspective. It actually served as an initial perspective in sociology. Even the greatest sociologist, Emile Durkheim, also used evolutionary perspective in most of his theories. We will come to that in detail. Okay, you will see all these things, and we will do everything in a beautiful way. You will not face any problem in any of the thinkers. Forget about the thinkers. You will not face any problem in sociology. Okay, see, if you have any doubts related to sociology, you can get in touch with me. That's my Instagram ID. You can join the Telegram channel. You'll get all my videos over there. If you need to write a test series, or if you need to have a personal mentorship on sociology or GS, economy, history, or any subject, you can get in touch with me. This is my number. This is my number, 9790-892-697 or 98955 77775. You can get in touch with me in any of this number, or you can directly see here, this is my Instagram ID. Okay, or you can join the Telegram channel. All my YouTube videos are available over there. Apart from that, if you need regular classes or online classes are there with StudyIQ, or whatever help you need, you can get in touch with me with respect to sociology. Okay, so I hope I can help you in that way. Then so what we have discussed, we were talking about these changes, right? So we have done with the changes and the problems that set the context for emergence of sociology, and the intellectuals started thinking of a discipline which could explain all these problems, because these problems are new now, right? Till then these problems were not there. So the bodies of knowledge which were existing, like history, geography, political science, philosophy, etc., cannot explain all these changes. So there is a need to have a new discipline now, okay, to explain the changes, to provide solutions, and also to predict the future of society. So intellectuals started thinking of a discipline which can explain all these changes, provide solutions, and predict future of society. Okay, that means similar to natural science. Then only you can predict future, right? So, and immediate context was present in France because of the issues that I've told you. And the French philosophers like Auguste Comte and Saint-Simon thought of solving this issue. And Saint-Simon initially thought of social physics on the line similar to natural sciences, because see, there is a general obsession towards science, and sociology is a young discipline, it is just coming. So to get that initial legitimacy, you need to claim that at least it is a science and it is similar to natural science. And that there was an attempt, but later Auguste Comte not only coined the term sociology but also laid the basic foundation of the subject sociology, and he is known as the father of sociology. So this is all about our discussion. So what all things that we have done, I hope it is clear now for all of you. We have done with what you need to remember is this only. There is something called as dark ages. There is no need to have any doubt over there. We have discussed already. Then you need to discuss about age of enlightenment or renaissance period, and you can divide that into three: scientific revolution, commercial revolution, and intellectual revolution. Then you can talk of modernity. Okay, so this is what you can understand as modernity. Different dimensions of modernity: political dimension in terms of emergence of democracy, economic dimension in terms of emergence of industrial society, new factories, new mode of production, new accounting techniques, etc. Then social aspect of modernity means nuclear families, migration, education, secularism, etc. Then you can talk of intellectual dimensions like faith in science, evidence and reason based logical inquiry. All those things you understood. And then, even though modernity is something which is considered as so much desirable, it came to be associated with lots and lots of social problems. So what are the problems? So here, social changes. And the social changes we understood in terms of macro. So what are they? Industrial society emerged. Okay, so emergence of industrial society. Then we have understood in terms of democracy. Then we have understood in terms of middle class. Okay, now you can explain these problems in detail. Like emergence of industrial society was not that smooth. It came to be associated with large number of social problems. Okay, like we have discussed workers working in inhuman working condition with less wages and more number of hours. Migration resulted in nuclear family. Slums emerged. Domestic violence, breakages, pickpocketing, new crimes, altogether a new type of poverty and deprivation which was never witnessed earlier. Then democracy, you can talk. Societies like England, the transition was gradual, but the societies like France, it is preceded by a revolution which resulted in total chaos. The uncertainty about its success resulted in insecurity in the mind of the people, and French society was in a total turmoil, and the immediate context was actually present in France. Then middle class, you can write, there was two divisions till then, upper class and lower class. Now new middle class, their aspirations also need to be incorporated within the existing socio-economic framework, and there was a social divide now, so there is a need to redefine the society was felt. Okay, so that's about the changes, and intellectuals started thinking of a new discipline which could explain all these changes, provide solutions, and also to predict the future of society, and they came up with sociology. And who was the founding father of sociology? Auguste Comte. Saint-Simon before that thought of social physics on the line similar to natural sciences. Then we will talk of intellectual contribution also. With that, your answer is complete. We talked about modernity, we talked about social changes, we talked about emergence. Okay, so I hope this discussion is clear for all of you. Let's move on to the PPT or the PDF. So what I'll do is, this is a note. I'll just read it out faster, and then I'll explain each and every point over there if we have not discussed. If we have discussed, I'll just skip like that. Okay. So sociology is considered as relatively a young discipline when compared with other social sciences like history, philosophy, etc. Yes, we have already told this. Sociology emerged in 1838, so it is basically a very young discipline. Okay, so as a distinct discipline, sociology emerged as a body of knowledge to undertake systematic study of what people do in their daily life and how they explain their existence. Yes, okay, there is no need to have any doubt there. What is specific about emergence of sociology is the understanding of developments in medieval Europe which generated an immediate impulse to establish the separate discipline. That is our topic, that is our questions also, right? So emergence of sociology is related to understanding of the developments in medieval Europe. We understood that scientific revolution, intellectual revolution, commercial revolution, and the changes which has been brought by modernity, okay, which emerged or which generated immediate impulse. We have seen that. Medieval Europe underwent massive transformation in terms of scientific, commercial, and intellectual revolutions. We have discussed that. These transformations gradually accumulated during 15th to 18th century and brought profound changes in social conditions. You have seen that changes in detail. These revolutions are collectively referred to as Age of Enlightenment, or the whole period is known as Renaissance period. So this is what Renaissance period is basically based on: intellectual revolution, commercial revolution, and scientific revolution. Okay, now let's move forward. Now here we are actually talking about Dark Ages in short. Okay, so European society before the Age of Enlightenment was based on agriculture, feudal estate system. The society was rooted in orthodox religious political worldview. The church preached excessive reliance on religion and its belief. Political aristocracy was engaged in wars, unmindful of the plight of the people. Okay, this period is known as Dark Ages. See, you don't want to write down all these. I'll give you the PDF. You can get in touch with me here. This is my Instagram ID, or you join the Telegram channel. I'll share the PDF in the Telegram channel, or I'll give you through Instagram. Okay, so there is no need to write down this, and you don't want to read anything else apart from this actually for this particular topic. And for paper one, I don't think anything you read extra from apart from our notes. If you attend all the classes completely, it will come around, 2 big books, obviously. Okay, so Europe started witnessing changes in terms of great awakening in scientific, commercial, and intellectual spheres. The awakening was collectively symbolized through a new ideological project called modernity. I've told you already there's an ideological concept, and modernity includes different dimensions. We have already discussed about the political, economic, intellectual, and scientific dimension or commercial dimensions. Different dimensions permeating through each and every aspect of social life. In broader terms, it refers to a set of ideas which are guided by the assumptions of science. So here you see different dimensions of modernity: intellectual, economic, social, and political. So if you see intellectual modernity, you can see faith in science, logical inquiry based on evidence and reason. Economic modernity, rational organization of production, use of technology, rise of companies, expansion in trade. See, again, I don't think that you need to draw this diagram every time. It's like this: if you get a short note, you can draw this diagram and you can explain everything in this simple diagram. But if you get a long answer, like 20 marker, then it is better to write in paragraph. And if time is there, space is there, then only you need to draw the diagram. I don't think that is actually required. For a sociologist, it is better to write in paragraph, convey things in paragraph. People tell you to draw the diagram, and you can draw the diagram if there is time. Okay, it may take some more time, right? You can write in paragraph in a beautiful way. You can write beautiful essay, beautiful answers in paragraphs. So if the question is long answer type, then write in paragraphs. If it is short answer type, then draw the diagram. Okay, so depends on the requirement of the question, you can use this diagram. Social modernity, if you see, emergence of industrial society, secularism, modern education, nuclear families. Political modernity, change from authoritarian to representative form, emphasis on welfare of people. Okay, so that's about modernity. Then see these questions which I have given to you after the session. If you want, you can write these questions. You can try writing these questions and you can send to me. I will evaluate the question and we will discuss. Apart from that, when we discuss about the test series, we'll discuss the questions and we'll have a direct interaction. Okay. Now the modernity project, it is project. So what I'll do is when I give you the PDF, I'll edit what all spelling mistakes are there. I'll edit and then only I'll upload. Okay. So don't worry about these mistakes. I'll correct it when I'm reading, but when I upload it, I'll edit it also. So the modernity project was based on excessive reliance on scientific worldview. Broadly, the modernity project initiated macro changes. We have discussed that macro changes in terms of emergence of industrial society, middle class, and then democracy and intellectualism. Okay, so these are the 4 dimensions, 4 macro changes. So what are the changes in terms of the emergence of industrial society, rise of liberal democracy, rise of middle class, emergence of new intellectualism. So this is very important part, and then you're explaining this further. Okay, so all these changes accumulating gradually in Europe during the Age of Enlightenment, Renaissance period, that is 15th to 18th century. These changes were understood as highly desirable, and modernity is seen something which is enlightening the life of the individual, right? You understood the situation. So, but gradually, number of new development has been come up with a lot of social issues. So the modernity posed a lot of challenges. Okay, so gradually number of new developments pose challenges before modernity and associated social changes. So if you remember one of the questions that we have discussed here, sociology, this is sociology, emerged in response to challenges posed before modernity in medieval Europe. So what are the challenges? You understood now. That's exactly what the statement all about, right? So gradually number of new developments posed challenges before modernity and associated social changes. So that challenges is what we are going to discuss. Then we will tell that led to the context for emergence of sociology. So these developments could not be explained by existing bodies of knowledge. Thus, a context for sociology emerged. What are the developments? The process of industrialization was not that smooth. It came to be associated with a large number of social problems. The workers worked in poor conditions, less wages, inhuman working condition. Slums emerged around factory, poor housing and living conditions. Okay, nuclear families emerged because of migration, started showing instances of domestic violence and even breakages. New types of crimes emerged. All these things led to new type of poverty and deprivation which was never seen before. Again, now let's talk about democracy. Second one, the rise of liberal democracy was associated with a lot of uncertainty about its success. In certain societies like England, the transition towards democracy was gradual, but in societies like France, it was preceded by a revolution, resulting in total chaos, and the French society was in a total turmoil. Then the uncertainty associated with its success led to the uncertainty associated with its success, I'll edit it and I'll give you, okay, led to insecurity among people. The rise of middle class created a divide in society which was never witnessed earlier. The aspirations of middle class could not be reconstituted within the existing socio-economic framework, so there is a need to redefine the society was felt. We have discussed this already. So now all these developments could not be explained by the existing bodies of knowledge. So the process of transition associated with modernity was full of challenges having ramifications for the whole society. The European society during 19th century was in a state of chaos, and the intellectuals started thinking of a new science which could explain these changes, provide the solutions, and help in predicting the future course of society. Okay, and you see here the immediate context was present in France, which was facing a total political turmoil along with social disorder. The French intellectuals thus addressed this new problem by conceptualizing a new discipline. The establishment of sociology is associated with the works of Saint-Simon and Auguste Comte, who were the French philosophers. Saint-Simon initially thought of social physics, that's a science of society on the line similar to natural sciences, natural physics. Later on, Auguste Comte not only coined the term sociology but also laid the basic foundation of the subject. Auguste Comte is considered as the father of sociology. So this is about emergence of sociology. Now briefly we need to talk also about the intellectual context. Otherwise, the other context is there. All these are actually the impulse. The social changes were the impulse or the context. Now we need to also talk about intellectuals. Without them, sociology cannot emerge, right? So no new discipline is possible. So thus social changes in Europe generated an impulse for conceptualization of a new discipline, but along with these social changes, the emerging intellectual context also added the process. The intellectual context included a very well developed political history, which provided huge data about society and helped generating view of society. So this is one point. Then, during 19th century, new methods were devised for investigation which could be readily used in sociology. For example, survey method, there's a second one, was used to study the state of poor during 19th century, which established the possibility of scientific investigation even in the social sphere. Okay, even in the social sphere, even if you're dealing with the subjective elements, there is a possibility of scientific investigation in the social sphere that also enhanced the scope of sociology. Similarly, Darwin's theory of biological evolution provided an intellectual logic for studying the evolution of society. It also acted as an initial perspective in sociology. I've told you, Emile Durkheim, one of the greatest theorists of sociology till date, he used evolutionary perspective in most of his theories. Marx theory, okay, I've told you, ancient mode of production to feudal mode of production to capitalism to socialism to communism. It's again, he understood history or society in terms of evolutionary process. Apart from this, general obsession for science during 19th century led intellectuals to positively think about a scientific study of sociology. So that's about the intellectual background. Now you see the final statement, this is our concluding statement. The emergence of sociology is the result of complex interplay of number of factors and the conditions for which emerged during medieval Europe. So emergence of sociology is a complex interplay. Now you know what are the complex interplay. The social issues and the intellectuals and everything. That's what you mean by the complex interplay. Number of factors. And condition. What is the condition for which? It is the social changes which was brought by modernity emerged in medieval Europe. Okay, so I hope you will be in a position. Now here if I put discuss after this statement, this is a question. I can ask you a question by just giving the statement, and I can put discuss, comment, analyze, critically analyze, etc. I'll differentiate all these words when we discuss about this test series. In our test series, we'll discuss about all these different words, all the meanings of discuss, comment, critically analyze, everything you need to see. For example, if it is critically analyze, for example, let's suppose we talk about some of the theory, okay? So like Marx theory of historical materialism, okay? Or in general, if you talk, forget about the theory, let's talk about National Rural Health Mission, general essay I'm talking, because you may not be knowing about this theory. So let's talk about NRHM. I hope you might be knowing about NRHM, National Rural Health Mission, for example. So what you will do, if the question is about critically analyze, what you need to do is, you first give an introduction. Obviously, you will talk about introduction. You will talk about the situation of rural. It's a rural health program. So you'll talk about the situation of rural health, like rural health is pathetic, the problems with hospitals, doctors, and the services, medicines, etc. You'll briefly talk about an introduction. And in this context, this program emerged. Okay. Then what you will do, you will talk about this program in detail and the features of the program you'll discuss. But still, you are not into your answer. Your answer is critically evaluate. But you have to write this before you move on to critically analyze. Now just keep this formula in mind, CCR. The first C is actually contribution. Even now you are not entering into your answer. What you will do now is, after talking about NRHM, you will now talk about the contribution of NRHM in improving the rural health. Okay, so you will talk about the contribution of NRHM, then you will go to the C. This C is about the criticism. This is actually the main part. So now you will criticize, and you don't face any problem in criticizing anything and anyone, right? You can start criticizing like anything. There is absence of doctors, there is absence of infrastructure, there is lack of awareness, nurses are not qualified, medicines are not available. Okay, anything you want, you can write over there. Criticism, I don't think anyone will face any problem. You can criticize anything and anyone just like that. Even without knowing, you can criticize. Okay, you may not be knowing the reality, but you keep on criticizing. Okay, then this R is relevance. Because you cannot complete your answer or conclude your answer with a negative note. So you need a positive, content, right? So you can write, even though NRHM is criticized on these aspects. You see the word that I'm using, even though. These are structure words. I'll tell you what is the importance of structure words in writing the answers. Because everything, see here, from here to here, if you need to deviate from positive to negative, you need to use a structure word. Although NRHM is having this much positives, there are some issues. Then here also you will have to use structure word. Okay, like even though NRHM is criticized on these aspects, but still it is relevant because still the rural health is poor and all those things you need to write. So that's how you conclude your answer along with your suggestions. So this is how critically analyze you'll write. Similarly, there is a skeleton for everything, and without having the skeleton, for example, when we started this particular answer, what I'm giving you, I'm giving the flowchart or I'm giving you the skeleton. Exactly the same was there if the question is about discuss. It should be different pattern from this. If it is comment, it should be different pattern. If it is analyze, it should be different pattern. So different patterns are for different answers that anyway you don't want to worry about it. I'm planning to do almost all the important topics in YouTube as much as possible. Apart from that, In test series also we will discuss all these things in detail. So see, if you want to write the test series, if you are writing next year, then you can start writing the test series now whenever you want. Otherwise, you can simply study for prelims, and then after the prelims you can do that. Okay, I myself will be evaluating the papers, okay, and nobody else will do that. Like if you see some other test series, only like students will evaluate, like people like you only evaluating your papers. What is the point in writing the test series then? Okay, so that all things we will discuss in the test series. So I hope you understood. So again, if you go for a quick recap of what all things that we have done, we started off with this very simple structure and we have done with this answer. And do you think you need to read anything else apart from this? The question will be maximum in 100. If it is 10 mark, you need to write maximum 150 word. If it is 20 mark, maximum you need to write 250 words. And this is coming around 400 words. So you cannot even write this much what I've discussed. So why you need to read anything else? And these are the only two possibilities in which they can ask you question. So understand this and study smart. No hard work, no reading too much of books. That's not required. What all things you need to know about emergence of sociology, you know now. Even without following the PDF, if you keep those things in mind, Dark Ages, you can write. Age of Enlightenment or Renaissance period, you can write. The elements, scientific revolution, commercial revolution and intellectual revolution, you will be in a position to write. Modernity, it is basically based on the assumptions of science. I don't think that you will face any problem in writing this. 4 dimensions you will write, right? Economic, political, social and intellectual. And then you will write about the social changes, broad macro changes in terms of industrial society, middle class and democracy and intellectualism. Micro changes, that the process of industrialization was not that smooth. It came to be associated with problems, and you know that. Problem with middle class, you know. Problem with democracy, you know. So that set the context for emergence of sociology. Then with the intellectual contribution, Saint Simon thought of social physics. Auguste Comte laid the foundation of sociology, and he is known as the founding father of sociology. So that's about the emergence of sociology. So like this, we will try to cover maximum topics. Okay, so I'm telling you, if you want to have regular classes or anything, you can get in touch with me. Online classes are also available. So I'll try to cover almost all important areas as possible here itself. So I hope you understood the session. See you guys. Thank you.